In this video we are going to talk about file and directory permissions on Linux. Before we begin, I want to mention that all the code and presentations from my videos are uploaded to my GitHub page, and you can get the link from the description of any video. Also, if this video is helpful for you, please like it, share it, and if you want to see more, then also please subscribe. File and directory permissions on Linux. First, I want to mention that, at least for me, I feel that the permissions model on Linux is much more simple and easier to understand compared to Windows. On Linux, you have the following permission values. You can have read, which is represented by the letter R, write, which is represented by W, and execute, which is represented by X, and execute is used for scripts and programs. In case you don't want to set any permission, or you don't want to set a permission, you will use the minus sign. And to better understand the way permissions look, let me show you a small snippet from an ls-l command, and we are going to analyze the permissions for the errors file. So as you see, the selected area contains 9 characters, and we can look at the permissions in chunks of 3 characters. The first 3, which are R, W, and minus, are the permissions that are assigned for the owner of the file, which is the user CentOS 100 in this example. The next 3 characters, which are the same as the first 3, are the permissions that are assigned to the group of the file. And you can see it in this example, it's also the CentOS 100 group. But it can be any other group if you decide to change it. And the last 3 characters, which in this case it's R and 2 minus signs, this is the permission that you set for any other user who is not the owner or a member of the CentOS 100 group. And I also highlighted here in steps. So you see the first 3 characters are assigned to the owner of this file, which is the CentOS 100 user. Then the next 3 are assigned to the group that is set on the file. And since I didn't change it, this file has been created with the CentOS 100 user, so its primary group has been set also as the group of the file. And the last 3 characters are assigned for any other user which is not CentOS 100 or is not a user of the CentOS 100 group. So we saw the permissions represented with letters, but you can also represent them with numerical values. Each character has a specific value, and the sum of those values represent the number that will be the actual permission. So X is 1, W is 2, R is 4, and minus is 0, since it means no permission. And here is how you would look at it. For example, for a file that would have all the permissions, so RWX, 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 the final permission number would be 777. This is because R is equal to 4, W is 2, and X is 1. So this is a 7, and we have 3 of them, so we have 3 sevens. In the second example, you see that there is no X permission, and also the other users don't have the write permission. This means the first 2 will have 4 plus 2, which is 6, and the last one will only have 4. And for the last row, you can deduce yourself why it's 554. To change permissions on Linux, you would use the chmod tool. And permissions can be set for the following principles: the owner, which is represented by U, the group, which is represented by G, other users, which is O, and if you want to set for everyone, you can just type A. And the last piece of the puzzle to change permission or to set permissions is the action that you want to do. We saw the permissions, we saw the principles on which we set permissions, and here is what you can do. You can use a plus sign to add permissions, you can use minus to subtract permissions, or you can just use equals to set the permissions as you write them. It will make much more sense when we get to the code, which is right now. Okay, so first let's create an empty file. And let's check out the permissions for this file. And you see the file is called file1, the owner is user100 and the group is user100. And the permissions are the following: read and write for the owner, read and write for the group, and read for others. Now let's start changing permissions. First, for example, let's remove the read from others. And this is the command chmod. We have O for others, minus because we want to remove, and we want to remove read. And now you see that others doesn't have any permissions on this file. Let's also add permissions now. And in this example, we add the execute permission for the others and for the owner. And you see that the color of the file has changed because it can be executed now. And we have X here and X here. With this command, we remove the execute permission for everyone. So you notice that we didn't specify anything here, which by default will put A for everyone. So we are back now with no X permission for any of the principals. We can also set directly what permissions we want. So if we want everyone to have read and write, we use A equals RW. And you see now everyone has read and write permissions. And if we want to go back to our default permissions, we just use this command. And we are back. Here is also how to use the numerical value. If we want to change the permissions, we just use chmod. We put what permission we want and we give it the file name. And 774 means read, write, execute for the first two principles and only read for the others. Now let's also test the execute permission because this is a little special. Let's create first a script file. And this is nothing fancy, we just write this text in script1.sh. Let's see the permissions for the file as they are now. So you see that it's not green and there is no X anywhere. So if we try to run it, of course it does not work because the permission to execute is denied. Let's add the execute permission for the owner. And first let's see how the file has changed. You see that now it looks like an executable file. So if we now run it, you see that the script has run because we get the text, "This is a script." And this was it for an overview of permissions on Linux. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and share it. Consider also subscribing, and thanks a lot for watching.